Without further ado, as you said, Sarina, we will start with our presentation. And before we get into a presentation, we would like to share. Is the share screen available for both of us?
Oh yeah, I will. Yeah, I forgot to make you. There you go.
Okay. I believe I've become the host now, and
Yeah. Are
people
you
are
able to?
coming in and yeah, so now I think we should be able to do the screen share. I'm doing a multiple screen share because there is some things that Aisha will share and some things that I will share. So yeah, so without further ado, we will start our today's conversation because we know we have 30 minutes time and we'll try to maintain it. I'll request Aisha to start with a little introduction to ASAP through a very interesting short film.
Okay. I am just trying to, just a second. I was in fact trying to figure out how to, because we are going to show a video,
Yeah.
and I'm just, yeah. Let me know if you're able to hear the sound.
Aisha, the sound isn't there.
Okay.
I think you have to do that, the special advanced sharing, and then you can share computer sound.
Yeah, I am trying to find that.
It's when you do the screen share, if you stop screen share, start
Okay.
it again. When you do it, it's on the left-hand side bottom or right-hand side bottom
Yeah,
at the corner.
it's showing advanced sharing options, right?
No, what you have to do is, when you do share screen, there's a
Huh.
share computer sound. Don't do the advanced sharing. Just share computer sound. That's on the left-hand side
Ah, okay, okay,
corner.
okay. Got it, got it, got it,
Yeah.
got it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Got it, thank you. Okay.
On the road to seeking abortion, Miss A faces two big barriers: restrictive laws and stigma. Laws are imposed by her country, but stigma often affects her closer to home. Let's say Miss A is married. It is possible that her husband might not be supportive of her reproductive choices, like her right to use contraceptives to prevent unwanted pregnancies. Like many other Asian men, he might think that contraceptives cause impotency. He might also believe that they are against the teachings of his religion. But when Miss A becomes pregnant, he might not want to have more children. In fact, he might want her to get an abortion and take her to a clinic. If Miss A is more than 12 weeks pregnant, in her second trimester that is, she runs into bigger barriers. Second trimester abortions are not available in several countries across Asia. Even where they are legal, they are highly stigmatized and simply inaccessible. Because of the stigma and the unavailability, Miss A might believe that abortion is illegal in her country. When Miss A believes that she has run out of legal options, she might seek unsafe abortion.
Yeah, so just to also highlight, this is just an edited part of the video. The video is actually 9 minutes long, and you can check it out on our official YouTube page. This is just sort of like an introduction. Yeah. Go ahead, Nandini.
Sorry, I was on mute. So we will share about our social media and our where you can find us during the presentation. But yeah, you can check us out and follow us. So now I will begin, to talk about Asia Safe Abortion Partnership, and I will take you through a PowerPoint presentation that we've sort of made for today. Just give me a second. So I hope everyone can see this, and I'll just go forward with this. So we really thank WGNRR, like Women's Global Network for Reproductive Rights, to give us this opportunity to talk about young people, reproductive justice and abortion rights, and some very critical topics, and of course at the core of our work. I'm Nandini, as I introduce myself, and I'm the assistant coordinator, and I have my colleague Aisha with me, who will speak more about other things that she also looks after in the organization. Now, Asia Safe Abortion Partnership, as I will see if I can do a slide share, and that way I can give you a full screen view. Okay, so the slide share is for some reason not happening, so I'll just move forward with this. So Asia Safe Abortion Partnership is a network, and we have members across some 23 countries in the region, spanning from West Asia to South Asia to Southeast Asia. And these are just some of the country profiles. You can find it on our website. What we do is we mainly work with young people. We work with the medical professionals, and we work with the media as our main key stakeholders. Asia Safe Abortion Partnership is also like we are also a thought leader, and we constantly produce a lot of sources, knowledge sources around safe abortions and medical abortions, and put them up on our website and on our other social media handles. And apart from that, this year we focused a lot, as I said, that we work a lot with young people and different stakeholders. This year was also, as we all know, was a very different and a difficult year. And a lot of the work that we did, especially around network building and further strengthening cross-movement collaborations, happened online, and we launched something called the ASAP Conversations. And we just start talk to all our partners in different diverse countries, working with diverse communities around the issue of safe abortions, and particularly to understand how that was affected during the COVID, the pandemic. We also work a lot with medical professionals, because with the idea that the next generation of healthcare providers will have a rights-based approach and will be more sensitive towards issues. The way we approach safe abortion is through the lens of gender and sexuality, and as a human rights issue. So, and that's how our work is sort of designed, and that's our approach. As I said, we work a lot with young people, and we conduct a lot of capacity building sessions. And so this is something called the Youth Advocacy Institute, which we run a few times a year. And off late we're doing it, and currently actually we're conducting one of the online institutes, and it's online right now, but otherwise these are physical institutes that happen, and to build young safe abortion advocates. And this is again another picture from there. I would invite my colleague Aisha to talk a little bit about the youth advocates we've built over the years, and with these youth advocates have then gone on to build these country advocacy network to advocate for safe abortion services in their countries. And Aisha will take you through a little bit more about their work and what they do. Over to you, Aisha.
Thanks a lot, Nandini, and thanks a lot, WGNRR, for inviting us here and giving us this opportunity to talk to young people. We're constantly looking for such platforms to, interact with the youth. So as Nandini mentioned, I'll just pick it up from there. She talked about the Youth Advocacy Institutes and how people who participate in it. So these institutes that we hold are also sort of with a focus on trying to interact with more people who are already in the medical profession or could be potential service providers, or work in the field of SRHR in across Asia in any capacity, right? So anyone basically who can take this information and can apply it with a gender lens that is required, right? So these are our youth champions, and as Anthony mentioned, they have many of our alumni youth champions, because since ASAP is a 10-year-old organization, and we've been holding a lot of YAI, so we've built a lot of country advocacy networks our youth champions have created in their own respective countries and regions. So we have right now, as it says here, they try to talk about abortion and reproductive rights and sexual rights in from countries with sort of liberal attitude towards the issue, but to from that towards even with the countries with the most controversial or very stigmatized circumstances. So yeah, they've been doing some great job at that, and as it mentions here, they've been trying to advocate for safe abortion through various means, and not just not just, they also hold their own youth advocacy institute. So right now we have about 8 country advocacy networks in countries like Bhutan, Nepal, Indonesia, India, Malaysia, Vietnam, and Pakistan. So all of these have been doing talking about safe abortion through art and activism, street dance theater. This is our Pakistan country network does it, like they've been doing a great job at that. College fests. Then this is another campaign that was organized by our Malaysia country advocacy network about the stigma, and they had their Insta also, they are there on social media as well by the name of For Youth Initiative Kuala Lumpur, FIIKL. You can check them out. And they organized this about the stigma campaign. They collected stories and reached out to artists who do sort of unconventional artwork like this, and that many people can but could often be stigmatized or tabooed in many places. So beautiful artwork they created, and an exhibition was held as the name suggests, about the stigma. And these are some images from the artwork, and the stories are right by the side of the painting that is there. So it was another beautiful, a very successful exhibition, which led to them working on short movies. So there are these 3 movies that they have created that sort of were inspired from this exhibition. You can check them out again on their YouTube channel. So yeah, like that, there are other cans they have been doing innovatively, creatively in their own manner, their own work. And another very important part of how ASAP associates with and we keep working with our youth champions and our cans is through our annual campaigns that we have. So through these campaigns each year we finalize a sort of a theme that we want to talk about. So for instance, last year we had Speak Truth to Power. So in such campaigns, our youth champions participate, and they share their information from their country, or their quotes, or how they feel, just generally how how the youth responds to the particular situation of safe abortion in their country right now, or how the leaders are reacting to it, and how there is no action, or so all of these things. So they very vocally talk about that, and they've done some brilliant campaigns. Dear Leader was a campaign that we did on 28th May, and you can check some more of our campaigns on our social media and website as well. And there is an interesting video. It's just 30 seconds, and I think it sort of gives like a nice idea. And so if I think I'm able to share screen, I can show it.
Yeah, you can share screen.
Okay, great, thank you.
Aisha, I'll just stop sharing my screen. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you restart?
Sure. Have you stopped?
Yeah, I've stopped.
Okay. So Yeah, so these are just clips from some of the videos and campaigns that our country advocacy network from Bhutan, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh have created some brilliant videos as well as part of their can resources, and that have been widely used across Asia now in terms of information from the coming from these countries, which are the only sources. So yeah, thank you so much,
Yeah.
Nandini. Back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Aisha. Thanks for that very brilliant presentation on the work that we do with the CANs and the youth champions. So coming back to today's topic. So we were asked to speak on young people, reproductive justice and abortion rights, and especially during this pandemic time. And why is it so important to focus on young people? So I think, and who are these young people? So for the sake of young people is a very diverse set of group. In terms of, this presentation, we will focus on the adolescent age group because that will help us bring up a few pertinent issues that affect young people. So we are looking at an age group of 10 to 19 years old. And the interesting part is that Asia actually today has one of the highest numbers of young people living anywhere in the world is here in Asia. And of course, most of the countries are lower or middle income countries. And also we have host of other issues that we often have to we confront, and and those issues make it very important to talk about young people's rights and especially their access to safe abortion services. Um, so we just found out one of the like yesterday that the total population of US and the young population just in India alone is double the population of the total population of US. So that's the extent of that's the number of people that we're talking about. And when we look at the entire range of Asia, that the numbers increase significantly, whereas the social norms, the restrictive laws, all of that make young people very vulnerable, especially young adolescent girls. So now some of the vulnerabilities we want to talk about, and I'm sure all of you who are familiar with this work, you already know a lot of it. So, but this is just to, we can't talk about young people without talking about these things. We understand in Asia, most of the countries that we work in, or even other countries, the social norms are very restrictive, and there is a taboo around sex and sexuality, especially for young people and young unmarried people. The laws, most countries have made the age of consent for sexual relationships 18, and anything below 18 is statutory rape. So that again penalizes young people and their sexuality. So laws also can be very restrictive towards exploring safe sex. Now, due to all these factors, it leads to having young people without any agency. So which means they do not have informed information, and they cannot take decisions over their own bodies and over their own sexuality. Furthermore, most young people in our cultures are dependent on their families. We don't really have a culture where young people go out to work or earn their pocket money. No, most of the cultures encourage young people to be dependent, and economically also there's a the prevalence of joint family structures and lot more interdependency on the families. So that way also young people are totally dependent. Now as and because of all these, the lack of the restrictive social norms and the conservative societies, there's obviously a huge there's a gap in terms of availability of comprehensive sexuality education, or CSE, and that is by and large not available for young people. So again, what their sources of information is each other, friends, peer groups, and not really, it does not come from a source which is reliable and proper for young people. And all of these factors then lead young people to greater vulnerability for gender-based violence, or all kinds of violence, actually. So, and so this is a pie chart that we found from Guttmacher organization, which shows that how many young people are in Asia are young, and how many of them have need for contraception, and half of them will not have these needs met. So unmet needs, so which is, and if you look at the percentage, it's like it might not be in numbers, in actual numbers, these are really significant numbers. And so it's really daunting that these many young people, adolescent young women, will have contraceptive needs to avoid unintended pregnancies and will not have the needs met, which means unintended pregnancies are really high in this region among this group. Now, some of the other types of gender-based violence that we think is very important to talk about when we talk about young people, like we reiterating it again, lack of sexual education, comprehensive sexual education, punitive laws. These are some images about early forced and child marriages, and South Asia has some of the highest rates. India has some of the very high rates for child marriages anywhere in the world. So, the entire region, this is, this is from Jakarta Post, which says that the pandemic has increased the instances of child marriages in the country. So there are these different countries, but these similar situations that young people face. And other kinds of gender-based violence, of course, not early forced child problem. Other problems are rampant gender-based violence in terms of sexual assaults, in terms of acid attacks, honor killings, domestic violence, and all kinds of other challenges that young people face, where without much, resort or issues that are not getting addressed as much, and therefore leaving them very, very vulnerable. What it leads to is that the lack of information leads to the inability to make informed decisions. They don't have enough control on their bodies and sexuality. Then early forced child marriages, as we've already talked about and seen, and the high prevalence of that in this region. Unmet contraceptive needs, also something that we've seen. So of course, if you get a girl married at 10 or 12, she will obviously not have the agency or the information to know how to control pregnancies, how to avoid pregnancies, and this will obviously lead to unintended pregnancies and lack of awareness around safe abortions, or the stigma around abortions will then lead many people to unsafe abortions and increase maternal mortality and morbidity rates. So all these factors are things that young people really have to grapple with. And this was the situation even before the pandemic. When the pandemic struck, the situation only became much more worse. And we've seen that unmet needs have increased. There are supply chain issues due to which contraception is not often available. There were strict lockdowns imposed in many of our countries, which meant young people were stuck at home. A lot of the times, the violence and the most dangerous place for young people are their own homes. And again, many of these poor, low-income and middle-income countries, like the countries we live in, Asia, do not have any redressal system for this. So a lot of young people were probably stuck at home. We saw that globally, and of course, in our own countries and region, we saw a spike in gender-based violence cases. And all of this then led to so many more people without modern contraceptive methods, with having to deal with unintended pregnancies, maternal and newborn mortality rates were higher. And of course, unsafe abortion was much more higher. And the UN had already predicted in the beginning of the lockdowns in Asia in April that there will be some several millions of unintended pregnancies due to the lockdown and due to the pandemic. So I think this, again, something that a lot of us already know, but it's very important to understand, especially when we are talking about young people who are already under so much control, surveillance, their mobility is not free, and they are, constantly under supervision. So in this situation, in the pandemic situation, obviously the things will become much more challenging for young people in our countries and context. So we know this was the situation, and then the pandemic hit and it became worse. So what is it about the pandemic? So here actually it's the image didn't come properly, but it is the one with the gun in the hand is supposed to be the COVID-19, the virus. And it's basically just saying that please think of me as an agent of change. We know that the systems were not in place. We know that our systems were broken. We know that there was a lot of issues with the systems in all our countries globally and in the region. So the pandemic is not something, it's not making, it is not creating these issues, but the pandemic is just magnifying these issues. So maybe it's for us, it's a time to like think what is it that we can do better so that our young people are not left at risk situations, or their morbidity, their it could come down, their quality of life could get better. So finally, we would like to talk about some of the strategies that we think will work to improve this and advance sexual and reproductive justice in the context of the pandemic. One is, of course, we advocate for, we can't, I mean, there are some, some of these things we've been talking about for decades now, but these are very important things. So comprehensive sexuality education is something that we must advocate for in our countries and regions, in our programs, activities, and something that we cannot not have. And young people should get information, proper information. So right to information is something that we need to really focus on. And of course, when they are informed, they will have a voice. So this is an image from our campaign where, young people are saying, so once you're 18, you can vote. And so, but what about managing safe abortions? So that information and empowerment is very important for young people. Now, some of the, again, comprehensive, holistic approach to this would be then making sure that CSE, comprehensive sexuality education, sex education is available for all. Create stigma-free and non-judgmental access for safe abortion services. So in this case, we have to work, with a range of stakeholders, and multiple approaches need to be adopted. So if we have to work with the young people themselves, obviously. We have to also work with parents, teachers, policy makers to make sure these things can be, these things happen. So of course, and these are like things that will take time, but we must not forget our commitment to them. So make sure that accessible quality care for safe abortion services are available. So which means that the public health system, which now during the pandemic, we've seen how, globally the public health system has been challenged, and to some extent, it's been, stretched beyond its capacities. So making us realize that the neoliberalization policies around healthcare, privatization, high cost of medical healthcare facilities is very detrimental for all of us. So we really need to advocate and reiterate the commitment of governments towards public health, and make sure accessible quality care is available to all, and especially to young people in the stigma-free and non-judgmental ways. Then, of course, capacity building to demand better access to safe abortions. So one of the things that really work for Asia Safe Abortion Partnership is to have these institutes, have these young people, young advocates. When we train these young advocates, we've seen that it's like a dominoes effect, or a cascading effect, or a snowball effect, where one person goes ahead and takes up, teaches or raises awareness for 10 others. And it's the best way to learn, it's the best way to share. So you empower one young person, you're probably empowering indirectly 10 others. So young people need to be empowered, and their capacities need to be built. So that's also absolutely non-negotiable. Then, of course, improved access to medical abortion pills for safe abortion. So the WHO has recommended the medical abortion pills as completely safe. In fact, the way the medical abortion pill was discovered was not by healthcare providers, but by common women in Brazil, who where abortion was restricted or not available. And one of the medical abortion pills was sold over the counter to as a ulcer treatment drug, and women discovered that the drug also works for safe abortion. So again, we have to trust people, and we have to make sure that yes, along parallelly, while we strengthen systems like public health systems, we have to empower people and young people. And of course, we have to, the elephant in the room is the laws that criminalize sexuality. We have to find a way where consensual sex for young people is decriminalized, and they are, they're given a non-judgmental and safe ways to talk about these issues, and access services, safe abortion services when they need so. So these are definitely things that we recommend, and these are at the core of the work that we do, because we do approach this whole thing through a feminist lens, through a human rights lens. This is a meme that one of our youth champions created. And it's really interesting because it's a take on, you must have seen Gandhi's Three Monkeys, where see no evil and hear no evil and talk no evil. And she's completely subverted it. And it's amazing because it's basically a young person saying that please pay attention to the needs of abortion services, listen to the stories of those suffering through unsafe abortions, and advocate access to safe abortions. And this is a young person in their own voice. So, of course, we cannot reiterate more that young people's leadership in facilitating full achievement of their SRHR and safe abortion services is vital. So we definitely think that, nothing about them without them, for sure. Now, this is a famous quote by the writer Arundhati Roy, and we definitely think that it's something to think about, because historically we are experiencing something which is like a 1 in 100 year event, which is the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's got all of us, I think, at a very difficult but at a very critical space. Now we have to decide moving forward what kind of a world we build, and I think this is very important reminder that she says that historically pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This one is no different. It is a portal or a gateway between one world and the next. So hopefully this is a reminder for all of us to, recommit ourselves to the work that has not been done yet, and make sure it gets done. And this is something that we would like to talk about a bit. This is a conference we are planning to organize. It's the Abortion and Reproductive Justice Conference. And we are planning to do, I mean, because of the pandemic, it got postponed, and now we are looking at dates in 2022. But we would request all of you to mark your calendars, and we hope to see some of you for sure there. It's a conference, a space to bring voices from all across Asia to discuss these issues, to inform policy and advocacy and the movements around safe abortion across Asia, and build the movement further, to provide an opportunity to focus on the region-specific issues around sex abortion, about safe abortion, sex selection, child marriages, some of these contentious issues that we face, and that often becomes, something that challenges us as also a safe abortion advocate. So we need to talk about these things, and of course ensure a larger voice from young people and the youth leadership, and build the youth leadership across Asia to contribute and become involved in the larger regional and global work around this issue. And again, why reproductive justice? And obviously today's program is also around reproductive justice and abortion rights. And to reiterate, reproductive justice is looks at the issues of reproductive, sexual and reproductive health and rights through the lens, through an intersectional lens of the social, political, economic, migration, and a host of other contexts. So HIV/AIDS, environmental issues, indigenous rights, minorities. So the rise of right-wing politics across Asia is again something that would, and how these affect our reproductive rights is what reproductive justice is all about, sexual justice is all about. And of course, the way we approach our work is through that holistic framework of human rights and the feminist lens. And reproductive justice also attempts to move a person beyond just the reproductive rights and look at the person as a whole, because obviously we don't live single issue lives, we live multiple issues, and therefore we have to address the issue of sexual and reproductive rights also through these multiple issues that affect them. And abortion rights, as we know, like just to reiterate, it's affordable and good quality safe abortion services for all. So, we are also trying to move beyond the gender binary of who needs an abortion. And so far, many countries or policies address it as only something that women need. But we have of late done a host of cross-movement collaborations, especially with the LGBTQ community. And we realize that it is a conversation that is valid for anybody with a uterus who may or may not identify as a woman. So it's definitely important to include all people who need the service in the conversations around safe abortion, and make sure there is affordable and good quality services for all, non-judgmental and stigma-free services, confidentiality and privacy of the abortion seeker, which means expanding access to medical abortion pills, which basically is very safe according to the WHO. It's very safe, and you can take it till quite some time during your pregnancy. And to know more about it, please visit the ASAP's website. You will find fact sheets, and you will find more information around the medical abortion pills. And of course, the decriminalization and policy changes to expand the safe abortion services to all. So for young people also, that below 18 young people who are sexually active, they should not have to go through the whole process of criminalization and other sort of hyper legal bureaucratic sort of uh, uh, so through these kind of measures to access services, they should also be given access to services through without any stigma and issues. So, and this is our poster for the safe about the ARGC conference, and these are just tentative dates, but we are looking at dates in the first quarter of 2022, and tentatively Bangkok, Thailand. But please follow us, follow our websites and social media handles, and we can share more later. And you for just to keep checking our work, and also see when the ARJC is actually being held. Ultimately, I will we've come to an end to the conversation, but it is mainly that we want a world where young people are not denied of safe abortions and other SRHR services, and nobody has to die because of an unsafe abortion. So that's the goal. And these are some of the social media handles we have, and we will share more information. And thank you. And we have, I think, a small video that Aisha would like to show. So if we still have time, then we will.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about, if we have the time, because the video is, I think, almost 5 minutes. 4 minutes something, yeah.
Maybe we can share that later after
Sure.
the other presenters. Yes.
Sure,
But thank
sure.
you so much, Nandini and Deyasha. It's so actually good that you were able to start it with how young people should really be involved in this kind of advocacy. And then maybe later we can also talk more about why abortion rights now is not only a sexual and reproductive health and rights issue, but also a human rights issue.
Yes.
With that, I would also want to call now Adsa to talk more about abortion and gender-based violence. Although this was already kind of discussed a bit by ASAP, we would want to know more about the correlation of these two. So, Adsa.
Thank you, Serena. It's nice to join again today in this panel, and just for my young friends again today, I'm joining today on behalf of my organization, Sama Resource Group for Women and Health, which is a Delhi-based organization, and we work on the spectrum of issues of particularly through the lens of public health and intersections of gender with other sexuality and other marginalized identities. This is important to also state because today some of the points that I'll be raising mostly will be might be related to the context of our work at Sama in the context of India. But I hope that they'll raise issues that you might be able to relate to, and I also believe stand true for other countries, for the region, Asian region that they're kind of talking about, and also other countries globally. First of all, I just want to start by, I do not have a PowerPoint, so what I'll just do, I'll just add few points just to get this panel going as a conversation. I just want to start by saying a big thank you to friends from ASAP, I think, who have done a fantastic work of making this, bringing out a very comprehensive presentation, particularly about COVID context, the looking at the holistic thing of abortion. So I'll just try and not I'll just request you also to keep what has already been said. So I'll try and not repeat, but just to add that to what I have been asked to speak on, which is on looking at gender-based violence and abortion. So we already heard that, we already heard from colleagues from ASAP about holistic approach to abortion care, looking at it as a right. So, about quality care, about a non-judgmental attitude, about its availability, affordability, about particularly when we are talking in terms of young people, about building their agencies, recognizing their agencies, challenging or engaging with, how to bring change in restrictive laws that criminalize adolescent sexuality. So keeping all of this in the background, and particularly, I think one very also interesting point that comes in, that today, while we are revisiting, while COVID context has been, as we have been saying, that COVID has been a mirror of a lot of inequities, and of a lot of silent, burdens that different communities or different identities have been bearing, and COVID has sort of unleashed it or unmarked it. It has been a mirror to show that, and in which the issues of young people have been brought about, and including issues of violence that's already been put forward to you. That how during lockdown, many women, including young girls and other young people, identifying as not necessarily as in gender binary, were also experienced situations of violence, that because how families can also be site of violence. So all of these have been raised, but it's also important to, I think, recognize and reiterate that while we're talking about abortion care, and today there are so many conversations being revisited about self management of abortion. So how, because today we are all talking about first line care, and in that we also see that when we are talking about young people, that young people themselves, or as persons, we ourselves are also part of that first line. So building their agencies, is if that is enabling them, and that's the conversation that it's great that it's happening today, and we really need to take that forward, that if building agencies is leading would lead to create a system where there can be self management of care as well, with proper guidance and support whatever necessary. And that needs to be seen, because this context is very important to bring about the changes that were perhaps not being thought of, or were not pushed like this in pre-pandemic. So with that in background, I will just start the so I have to speak on gender-based violence and abortion, and how both of them are linked. I believe that all of us here agree that gender-based violence is how it is a violation, how it is a human rights issue, because it's a violation of human rights of those women, girls, and persons who are subjected to violence. Uh, um, at Sama, we primarily work on gender-based violence as a public health issue. In fact, so along with being a human rights issue, GBV, I'll just address gender-based violence as GBV for the rest of the presentation. So GBV is also a public health issue, and it's important to say to highlight this or to foreground this, because often it's not understood, it's not seen as also a public health issue. Uh, it's important to foreground it, because health rights are also human rights. When we are saying human rights, we also mean health rights, and all of these, and these are human rights when we are saying, and that's where when we say sexual and reproductive health rights, we know that these are spectrum of rights, and these are interrelated rights. So health rights are also human rights, and GBV is also a violation of health rights, in a way that it affects the health of the survivors as well. And by survivors, we mean all those women, girls, and other persons who are facing violence, who are subjected to situations of violence, whether it is domestic violence, whether it is sexual violence, or any other form of violence that was also, I think, flagged in the previous presentation as well. All forms of violence we think of is intrinsically has whole consequences on the health of the survivors as well. These health consequences may be physical, may are also psychological. They range from uh, from uh, uh, from long term to short term in sexual violence, for instance, or in domestic violence. There may be injuries that need immediate first aid or immediate primary care or treatment, but as well as there may be long lasting term have been found in, by looking at, and these are documented health impacts and can be more looked into, and we can share. I'll be happy to share more materials on this before. But just for this conversation, just to really say uh, that GBV is also violates health rights, and the health rights of survivors, therefore, must be foregrounded as also as a very focal human rights. And within there, and when we are saying health rights, which means that we are talking about making systems accountable, or flagging that the healthcare and services are essential for recognizing rights of the survivors. So GBV's health impacts also include unintended or unplanned pregnancy, as that can be one of, one of the impact of when we are talking about sexual violence, whether it's being whether it's done as part of interpersonal relationship, or whether it's a sexual violence, in cases where it's done is perpetrated by strangers. GBV, and just to keep in mind that it's also important to realize that when we say GBV and when we are saying young people, to also look at the data and statistics, and to keep in mind that whenever we say GBV, a substantial burden of gender-based violence is also borne by girls in a very young age. If you look at like for instance in India, if you look at NCRB data, which is National Crime Records Bureau data, shows the this differentiated figures where we see that the survivors in cases of rape, how there are higher incidence of cases between 18 to 30 years of age group. So when we are saying GBV and survivors, there also just to bear in mind that it's not only affecting um, 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 uh, women in a certain age. It affects everyone, and within that everyone, within all survivors, the burden on young people must also be recognized. Now coming back to abortion and GBV. Now gender-based violence, while we are all recognizing that it is a human rights issue, and we all talk about, as groups, as feminist activists, as advocates of, or even as just simply citizens or members of our society, we talk about, and often we come together to talk about justice for survivors of rape, justice for survivors of sexual violence, for domestic violence. Now, if we are talking about justice for survivors, we have to therefore link or join the conversation of abortion and GBV, because often women and girls seeking abortion care are also the survivors of violence, and they are reaching out to the system, or out to you, or out looking out for abortion care, and are in need of that, because it's an impact, or it's a situation they are finding as a result of a form of violence. So we cannot, and therefore it's very integral, we cannot talk about justice for survivors, we cannot talk about, as people who are against gender based violence, and that we do not support abortion rights. I mean, these are there is just no, I mean, I wouldn't say that there is that option. So therefore, just to for this conversation, I think it's very important to understand that how integral these two conversations are. And but therefore then, when we are saying, and when we understand that abortion care must be provided, and it also includes, the healthcare may range from, for instance, if a survivor of sexual violence is reporting immediately after the incident, for instance, just to bear in mind that the care would range from, and the health system needs to be prepared, and we need to ask for that spectrum of care. So whether it's medications, whether it's counseling, or whether it's any other form or assistance of care that may be provided, is integral. So we have to therefore talk about comprehensive care availability as a matter of justice for the survivors of gender-based violence. For example, if a survivor of sexual violence is reporting immediately within 24 hours or within 48 hours, then giving or providing them with after due counseling, if it's a penovaginal if it was a penovaginal sexual intercourse in the history of the violence. So you have to, like, as medical professionals, support persons, you have to take history of the violence. So if it was that, then providing pregnancy prophylaxis or something like what we popularly, at least in India, we know as IPIL, emergency contraceptive pill that can help in preventing pregnancy. So that forms the first line of treatment, and that must be, and these things must form the basis of, these should be available, these should be represented well in the guidelines or in protocols that are being followed by the health systems. And in India, we do have guidelines, for instance, that do flag it, that does say that you have to provide this and recognize this as first line of care and treatment. So just to so it becomes important, therefore, that to recognize this as a very essential and non-negotiable form of care, and that survivor, when they are accessing health system, whether or not they want to disclose violence, but with their due consent, that they should have the option, and they should be given, provided that counseling of and then be given that prophylaxis, or be taken, or be screened for, or many survivors are so young that they also do not understand that this episode of violence may also lead to unintended pregnancies. We have in I mean, as part of our work, we have seen survivors as young as 10 years, 12 years, or even 13 years, where young girls are brought and they were just not aware that they were pregnant. Often pregnancies are also screened in terms of routine health checkup, or when something is, they're feeling too unwell. And often these survivors, some of these cases have, or more than often, are from poor socioeconomic communities, so those intersections are also intersections of marginalization for young people, are also represented in these scenarios. And therefore we constantly, we are also keeping that in mind, and we are talking therefore about also public health systems, affordable systems. So even counseling. So a lot of times young people, that young girl may not be aware about because as the previous speaker was pointing out, that how we lack comprehensive sexuality education, and often young girls are not even aware about whether or not this will lead to pregnancy, or if they are missing their periods, that it has to be screened. So it's not always that uh, all survivors, and especially, and it becomes important when you are talking about young people, that all survivors are also already aware and are coming and saying that, hey, I need abortion. There are so many times, there are cases where that person, that survivor, has to be screened, and has to be counseled, has to be provided that information. And often doctors and medical officers and support persons become the first source of that information for them. And this is happening when there has already been a situation of violence, and they have to deal with that. So therefore that comprehensive approach, the comprehensive care becomes important, which is not just about providing medicine, but also about providing counseling, providing information, and really empowering them, building their agencies to understand. So any therefore abortion care and abortion by itself, it becomes so important to be integrated into the dialogue of gender-based violence when we are talking about. And also because often, I mean, we keep hearing about stigmas and confusion of laws, and often GBV cases are also become medical legal cases. These confusion lead to delay. The kind of delay, like if a survivor has come with 4 weeks or 5 week pregnancies, and if the legal limit is to a certain week, so often delays lead to extension of pregnancy, that then it makes it illegal, which which uh, which in itself is an injustice that is being done by the system. you know So these there are these issues which also need to be recognized and need to be raised, that when when young person, when young girl is reporting to you, and how abortion care needs to be again to be reiterated as first line of care and treatment that you provide. And that's what we advocate for in our engagement with doctors. And some of them I mean, there is hope, because some of them in our experience have shown that leadership, where we continue to tell them in our trainings and engagement with them, that you recognize abortion or MTP, medical termination of pregnancy care, as first line of care. Do not cause delay, or definitely no denial of it, if the survivor is saying that that's what they need. And any other medical legal proceedings should follow after that. It shouldn't be held the care shouldn't be held hostage to what legal proceedings or legal requirements may be required. And here, what also becomes important, and something that we raise in our work with health system, is that uh, in cases of GBV, health practitioners, whether it's doctors or others health practitioners, they have a dual role to play. I mean, they have a forensic role to play, in which they make medical legal report, and that goes to the court, and they become witnesses in these cases as expert witnesses. They go to courts and present their findings, which is also very important for survivors to seek justice within criminal justice system, if that's what survivors want, if they want to report to the police. But the other most important role, which often remains neglected in terms of GBV, is the therapeutic role. The primary role as doctors, as health system, is the role of providing care, of extending care and treatment. And abortion needs to be located, needs to be brought out from this cloud of medical legal to the therapeutic role, because it's a health need, it's a health care that is provided. And often all these situations are situations of emergency, and that's the kind of conversation that we need to take forward, and build in all our regions and contexts, however they will apply, of course. I mean, the larger what is the law, the legality of abortion, and all that will come up. And but this conversation must be built in whatever context, or at least we should attempt to make this conversation, you know um, 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 uh, to take to just take it forward, that how when we're talking about GBV, how abortion care becomes is seen as a primary health care that should be provided. And also uh, uh, and also to say that when we are talking about abortion and GBV, the I mean, abortion care by itself also, the barriers that we often keep talking about. So even if it was a consensual sexual relationship, even where couples were where it was not a case of violence, but it is an unplanned or unintended pregnancies. And this is something generally that we keep talking about. I'm just urging here also for us to broaden the thing of gender-based violence, because today we are also articulating, and particularly from the point of view of reproductive justice, is is systemic violence, that also needs to be seen. So uh, uh, so uh, uh, abortion, denial of abortion, even in consensual sexual relationship, is also forms, the denial of, because you're denying the bodily agencies, and makes it a systemic form of violence. And this systemic denial and discrimination must also become part of our conversation on GBV. So there is that scope also to to bring together these two conversations. And I'll just wrap up by saying that that uh, today, because this panel we are doing during 16 days of activism, and just to reiterate, just to remember it simply, that when we talk about justice for survivors mean that they be given immediate power and decisions to make about their body. Because during violence, what happens is that it's already, it's their autonomy that's challenged when any form of violence happens. So by not recognizing their in response as a system, by not recognizing their decisions, or causing any kind of barriers or delay, what the system continues to do is to continue, it adds to that violence. So justice for survivors absolutely has to mean that they have to be given absolute right to their bodily integrity and bodily autonomy, and which includes the sexual and reproductive health rights that we're talking about, and is in turn the human rights as recognized for everyone. And also remember that uh, uh, that um, uh, all of these processes have to happen in a way that informed consent is being taken, that that the agencies of adolescent girls are being recognized, and that they are being empowered to make decisions and to seek care as and when required. Yeah. Thank you, Serena. I'll just stop here, and I'll be happy to take any questions later during the discussion.
Yes. Thank you so much again, Adsa, for joining us today. Once again, of course, this is so good that we have a lot of topics to discuss, but then feel free to just chat all your insights or feedbacks or any clarifications that you have, because maybe this is sort of a really huge topic for you. Well, then, as we continue to talk about abortion rights, its relationship to reproductive justice, um, of course, we still need to talk about that there are still other countries that abortion actually no is still restricted, and one of this is the Philippines. And now for our next speaker, we would want to her to talk about the decriminalization campaign. Of course, so and also it is also an assertion of rights to access for safe and legal abortion. And why is it really important for us in this kind of advocacy? So may I call on Attorney Clara Rita Padilla of Pinsan?
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I'll start. Um, um, a lot of issues and points were already raised. So I'll discuss first in the context of decriminalization of abortion as an assertion of the right to access safe and legal abortion. Basically, what we're saying is we want to take out abortion from the penal code. And simply because, first, we want to save women's lives, we want to free women from disability. And that's why I'll talk about the campaign later. But before that, I'll talk about the general context of decriminalization of abortion. Okay, so we want to decriminalize abortion, as I said. Um, we have found, for example, in the Philippines, despite having a post-abortion care guideline of the health department, we noticed that, of course, since there's a restrictive abortion law, um, many women are denied access to even a legal procedure such as post-abortion care. So after efforts to um, enact that post-abortion care policy, we decided to finally embark on a decriminalization of abortion campaign. We have been trying to, of course, change the policy, for example, in the Philippines, to provide access to safe and legal abortion. Um, However, we found that for a lot of people, using decriminalization actually resonates to a lot of advocates, a lot of women, and other pregnant persons. So we find that saying in the context, the campaign, placing it in the context of decriminalization, taking away the penal provision, saving women's lives, would actually catch attention in terms of um, seeing the light at the end of the at the end of the tunnel. So of course, once we are able to to decriminalize abortion, and even if this is a long struggle, in the process, we are able to destigmatize abortion. And later I'll talk about examples of the stigmatizing abortion and how it helps um, women and other pregnant persons in terms of access to safe abortion, emergency abortion care, and post-abortion care. So I already mentioned removing the punitive provisions on abortion. If you talk about this internationally as well, this is actually trailblazing because we know that there are laws either still criminalizing abortion or providing abortion only on certain grounds. So what we're pushing for actually is once you're able to decriminalize abortion, the idea is um, that there will be no express grounds needed for any woman, any pregnant person, let's say a transgender man, who would want to discontinue a pregnancy. Okay, so in the context of the Philippines, for example, there have been other laws under the revised penal code, which we adapted from the old Spanish penal code, that have been decriminalized, such as vagrancy, um, those trampling about the streets without visible means of support, which is actually anti-poor. Unfortunately, we are still faced with the so-called um, prostitution because that's how it's stated in the revised penal code because it was adapted from the Spanish penal code. And that's why we need to repeal all these discriminatory laws against women in the Philippines. So um, if we take a look at the summary of our argumentation in terms of decriminalization of abortion, um, there is, of course, unavailability of safe abortion due to the existing laws, whether it's for certain legal grounds only, um, and especially in the Philippines where there are no express legal grounds. So in terms of the penal provisions, we know that it has never decreased abortions. It only endangers women and lead to the judgmental attitudes. That prosecution of women, other pregnant persons is not the answer. So that's why part of the argumentation that we use is that there should be respect for diverse beliefs, freedom of thought, conscience, religion, separation of church and state, non-establishment of religion, among others. So part still of our summary of argumentation is that these restrictive laws are a product of patriarchy, fundamentalist culture beliefs, and colonial laws as well. So, for example, from the Spanish Penal Code, it's 1870s. From others, it's 1860s, which could be traced back to even the 1820s. Okay, so for some countries, we want a liberal interpretation of the Constitution, right? However, of course, the removal of the equal protection of the life of the unborn or of the embryo, the fetus, because using the unborn is actually it's religiously laden. So that should be removed in all of the constitutions. Okay. Um, as was what was mentioned by the panelists earlier, the right to safe and legal abortion is a public health issue. We have actually called it a public health emergency issue in the Philippines. It's a human rights issue. It's a social justice issue because a lot of poor women are unable to access safe abortion. And now, given the pandemic, it's not just poor women, but even middle income women who have lost their jobs or those who are having financial constraints would have a problem. Okay, so um, what we're saying is that there are also various reasons why women induce abortion that are not covered by certain laws. So, for example, if it's economic, young age, health, life, fetal anomaly, for rape, study, work reasons, lack of supportive family partner, in many of the laws across the globe, um, there are many that would not cover um, these kinds of reasons. So we're saying that safe abortion is unavailable, despite legal exceptions. You would have examples of um, the Irish issue where this young woman who had a miscarriage was denied access to completion of abortion, and she eventually died, and that's why the Irish women trooped to the streets and they were successful. Okay, so here, because of experiences in a lot of countries, strict legal regulations, refusals, providers and the legal system, non-registration of even pills in the Philippines. We've had a problem as regards even registration of contraceptive pills. Um, Vacuum aspiration. A lot of medical providers do not know that it's registered in the Philippines, for example, among others. Okay, so part of our argumentation still is that contraceptives have failure rates. We know that. It's also contraindicated for certain women. Um, of course, we have to promote access to contraceptives, right? But as we know, they have failure rates. Okay, so emergency contraceptives, what was mentioned earlier. Um, in the context of the Philippines, they are not widely used even by rape crisis centers or crisis centers addressing survivors of gender-based violence. So we need to popularize that. And there's actually a strong several groups advocating for the mere access to emergency contraceptive pills. Sexuality education issues, you will have problems. For example, in the Philippines, it's not widely and effectively implemented. And as mentioned earlier, gender-based violence, apart from gender-based violence, of course, gender relations. So you have experiences where, as mentioned earlier, uh, in the cases that we have interviewed, there are men who, because their wives refuse sex, they would beat them up. And so you will have coerced sex, that of course can be considered marital rape, and unwanted pregnancies, and of course the relation to unsafe abortion as well. Okay, so it's a reality. We know uh, women who undergo unsafe abortion, it's common, it's normal. So what we're saying is that we should make it a buzzword. Let's put a face on these women who are suffering discrimination because of lack of access to safe abortion. And if it's not available, we know that there's a high unintended unwanted pregnancies, including high adolescent childbirths. It's a violation, of course, of women's rights. It's discrimination against women. There's lack of respect for women's human rights, decision making, and subordination of women, where the state is actually saying they own women's bodies. And that is not the case at all, right? Okay, so violation of other rights would be right to life, health, security of person. We're saying freedom from disability because of the complications from unsafe abortion. There would be lifelong disabilities for women suffering complications from unsafe abortion. Right against torture because the the forced pregnancy itself um, is um, torture. Rape survivors who are forced to carry the pregnancy to term, that would be a violation of their right against torture, among others. And of course, the abuses that they suffer when they are denied access to humane and non-judgmental abortion and even post-abortion care. The right to equality and non-discrimination, of course. When we say equal protection of the law, whenever we have um, discriminatory laws, including um, imposition of restrictive penalties on abortion, there's unequal protection of the law. Okay, so that's why we want to decriminalize abortion. And so we actually say that if men needed safe abortion, we would not have this kind of a restrictive law everywhere in the world. Okay, so right to privacy, of course, is very important. Um, and there has been a global liberalization of abortion law. And many you would see were because of the result of the reviews by the CEDAW committee, the Committee on Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, the Human Rights Committee. And these are the committees tasked to monitor the implementation of various treaties, like the Women's Convention, the Civil and Political Rights Convention. Okay, um, so uh, we say that this is part of course, of the international human rights standards and comparative jurisprudence, where jurisprudence in many countries all over the world would say that there should be right to access to safe abortion. Okay, so we mentioned already social justice and as mentioned earlier, this is a reproductive justice issue, and a disproportionate impact to poor women. Okay, so we're also saying that we should fight all facets of religious fundamentalism. For example, the Philippines is the only country in the whole world without a law on divorce. So you might think that how can women in abusive relationships end their abusive relationships? We have nullity of marriage, but it's very difficult to win such cases, and it takes very long and it's very expensive. Okay, so apart from that, of course, other facets of religious fundamentalism would be lack of laws on marriage equality, gender recognition, anti-discrimination based on SOGI. We should expose sexual abuses in the church and repeal all laws that discriminate against women. For example, in former British colonies, you have Section 377, right, on sex against the order of nature. Um, of course, that has been declared unconstitutional in India and in Fiji, but many other countries have the same, still have the same colonial law, and it's discriminatory against a lot of LGBTI people. Okay, so uh, here in the Philippines, a lot of women are denied access to safe abortion, and not just women are not just unable to access safe abortion, but also emergency abortion care when there's danger to the life and health of the woman, and post-abortion care, even when it's um, a legal procedure to save women's lives. So just a few more slides to talk about the context in the Philippines. So an example of a harsh and restrictive abortion law is the Philippines, where it's not just women who induce abortions for viable pregnancies who suffer harsh treatment by healthcare providers, but also even for medical reasons, which should be covered under therapeutic abortion, which should not be penalized, for example. Um, so a woman who has a medical condition, there's risk to her life and health. Um, she has a pregnancy condition, or in other words, a fetal condition, um, and they are all suffering harsh and judgmental uh, um, treatment from healthcare providers. And even naturally occurring medical conditions such as spontaneous abortion or miscarriages, incomplete abortion, or even intrauterine fetal demise. There have been arrests of safe abortion providers as well, and I have defended these safe abortion providers successfully. But uh, there was so much effort done, and the safe abortion providers actually uh, found the process very traumatic. Okay, so here we're saying that we are talking about women's and pregnant persons' human rights, saving women's lives, freedom from disability. Um, Again, we repeat right to health and life, right against sexual assault, gender-based violence, and the impact, of course, right to decide one's own body, right to privacy, bodily autonomy. A woman's body is her choice, her life, her say. Who to have sexual relations, that's important. Whether to have relations or not, the right to one's soji, they are all part of this issue on one's bodily autonomy. Right to quality of life, we often talk about that here in our decriminalization of abortion campaign. What if the woman cannot afford to take care of another child? Um, and and her right to decide how many children, or even if she does not want to have any children. Okay, so the whole decriminalization of abortion is what we're saying as providing an opportunity for us advocates to save the life of a woman, girl, transgender boy or man, And it's an opportunity to change the outcome for pregnant persons who have decided to discontinue their pregnancy, whether it's a medical condition, whether it's a poor woman with financial constraints, whether she has an abusive husband or partner, whether she's a rape survivor, whether she's an adolescent, too young here in the Philippines, under 25 years old, almost 50% of those who induce abortion are under 25. Persons with disability, if they have dwarfism condition, that's a risky pregnancy and childbirth, or for whatever reason. So that's why we're saying that there should be revision of laws, policies, and practices. There should be access to medical care and no judgment but respect. So just a few more slides. Basically, in our campaign, we're saying here in the Philippines that we want to save the lives of thousands of women, girls, persons with diverse gender identities. And this can be anyone's daughter, your daughter, sister, partner, mother, wife, niece, granddaughter, and that safe abortions are actually safer than childbirth. Okay, and there should always be respect for the woman's personal decision. And this relates to the right to safe abortion. This relates to right to marriage, procreation, contraception, divorce, diverse relationships, covered by privacy rights, where governmental interference should be precluded. Okay, there should be no governmental interference in such privacy rights. Okay, so this is a basic human right. We call out in terms of medical ethics that the role of health providers should be as health providers and not police officers, threatening them with arrests and reporting them to the police authorities. That should not be the case. Otherwise, the women will not seek medical care. So again, issues related to confidentiality, proper care, and of course, raising the liability of healthcare providers. And then issues related to public health and human rights and constitutional guarantees. So we see here in the Philippines as well that apart from arguing on human rights, we also argue that these human rights are already in our constitution, and these are guarantees, including, for example, non-establishment of religion and a secular state, which means the Philippines, for example, is not a religious state. Okay, so other reasons already cited, but just to again stress the point that decriminalizing abortion will provide rape survivors and those sexually exploited, including trafficked women, the opportunity to discontinue unwanted pregnancies without risk to their lives. And of course, adolescents are at risk of dying when they are forced to carry the pregnancy to term. And this will address the social impact of adolescent pregnancies. We, of course, argue that the right of the fetus is not equal with the right of the woman. And other constitutions, like the Philippines, with the prenatal protection of the unborn, so we call that prenatal protection, also allow abortion on broad grounds. For example, Costa Rica, Hungary, Kenya, Poland, Slovak Republic, South Africa. Okay, but for example, in Kenya, there was one doctor in the recent webinar last Friday. He mentioned that he was still arrested despite having certain grounds allowed for abortion. Okay, so these are clear examples of where we need clear removal of all penalties on abortion. Okay, so of course we need to comply with international human rights obligations, and the CEDAW committee and the various human rights committees, the UN committees, treaty monitoring bodies, UN special rapporteurs, they have all called for decriminalization of abortion. Okay. And what we're saying also in our campaign is that for those who oppose decriminalization of abortion, we are not forcing them to undergo an abortion against their beliefs. But at the same time, they cannot impose their beliefs on other people, whether they are private persons or health providers or government officials, legislators, and all. Okay, so there have been cases around the world saying that freedom to believe is absolute, and constitutions providing this, but there is no freedom to act on one's beliefs. So, for example, if a woman needs emergency care for unsafe abortion, post-abortion care, no health provider can um, actually deny access to post-abortion care. So that is a clear example of no freedom to act on one's belief. Okay, so just to wrap up on in terms of reproductive justice, we're saying the criminalization of abortion and access to safe abortion is part of reproductive justice, including emergency abortion, post-abortion care, access to contraceptives, sexuality education, maternal care, freedom from gender-based violence. And I'll just show you very briefly some slides on the bill that we launched. This was on September 28th, the International Safe Abortion Day. So the title that we use is to save, decriminalizing abortion to save women, to save the lives of women, girls, persons of diverse gender identities, to be inclusive. Okay, and the hashtags that we use are Save Women's Lives, Decriminalize Abortion Now. And basically, there's support from young people a lot. Um, and then we noticed that the reason why I delve a lot on public health issues and explain a lot on the impact, for example, is because we've noticed that if you argue on abortion as a right, which should be the case, right? There are many people who do not understand that. So, but when you argue, for example, on abortion for rape survivors, abortion, the impact, the life and death impact, for example, a lot of people are able to understand it. Okay, so and then of course the websites and then the social media campaign that we have been doing, and then the sign-on petition. We now have 18,000 signatories to the sign-on petition, and then the bill is now up, etc. Okay, so and then we always show that there was one legislator who actually filed such bill to decriminalize abortion in the Philippines to provide it on certain grounds, but there are a lot in the past who have been trying to increase penalties. So it's a real issue. Apart from what's happening, they even want to increase the penalties. Okay. So and then differentiation of nuancing proactive language. And basically, this is my last slide. We call on everyone to rise up to the challenge to save women's lives, and of course, advocating for decriminalization of abortion and access to safe abortion and legal abortion is part of one's freedom of speech, freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. And if you suffer any kind of um, flack, you are a human rights defender, call on people who can help you, lawyers such as myself and other lawyers as well, women's human rights defenders, for example, and there are quick response teams that can help. Apart for example, the the Commission on Human Rights in the Philippines, the NHRIs, UN Special Rapporteurs, etc. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you so much, Attorney Claire. Thank you so much for that full pack discussion on why we need to decriminalize abortion, and also as to why is it necessary for us to continuously assert the right for safe and legal abortion, not only for those countries with restrictive laws on it, but also to those countries whose who with that is wherein abortion is already legal. Um, I actually checked the chat box earlier and there was a question from Donatus, but I guess it was already answered by ADSA. Um, if there's anyone here who would quickly want to ask something from our speakers before we finally or formally end this session, because it's already 6:30. So if it's okay with you, we will just like extend for maybe 3 to 5 minutes just to wrap things up. So if there's anyone else who would want to ask questions, if there's none, and of course, if you feel like there's a lot of things going on right now, like we have a lot of topic that we talked about, don't worry, as we will compile all the presentations from our speakers. And we will ensure that we will email this to all of you. This recording will also be available on the YouTube channel of WGNR. Okay, I saw Matilda raised her hand just now. So Matilda, do you have any question?
No, basically it's not a question, but I just want to talk a bit, as I'm coming from different place, and most of the sharing was from Asia. So I'm Matilda from Tanzania. I've been to this webinar for this is the third time, and this one was a very, very great conversation. I've learned a lot from you guys, for the speakers, and I am very grateful to be part of this platform. But I would love to say that you have been sharing this is the you have been sharing the situation in Asia, but I just wanted you, I want you to know that the situation you share is just the same in Africa, just the same in my country. Like, we cannot talk about abortion in my country. It's very criminalized that you will not talk about abortion, and not that young people are not accessing unsafe abortion. They are doing a lot of unsafe abortion. Unsafe abortion is going on a lot for adolescent and youth, as we continue facing gender-based violence, forced marriage, raping, and all of that. But the government, the laws, doesn't want to make a room for people to access it freely, legally access it freely. Despite that, we have been part of the of great treats, like Maputo. Tanzania has signed the Maputo Protocol, but not yet being exercised in the country. But so we, as young advocates, as youth, we need to come together and join our strength to advocate for the thing that we need to see. I've had privilege to lead a youth academy where I supported 60 young people through WGNRR. We had a project where we trained and supported 60 young advocates to amplify the voice and make change in their community. And it's really, really, really brought a great impact. So we need to build the capacity for young people. Most of the people would want to talk, would want to engage, but they don't have enough skill, they don't have enough knowledge on the issues. So if we want to move, if we want to make an impact, nothing will be granted for free. Just like no one will just wake up in the morning and say young people deserve this. We need to push for what we need. Like, even access to information is not even enough. It's not, the information about SRHR is not even there. The information about contraception is not even there. The services is not given priorities in the government budget and all of that. So as young people, we need to speak out of what we want. We need to amplify our voice and talk, be the one representing our issues. I've seen it, I've learned it from the project that we implemented. 60 young people has made a huge impact in their communities as they are speaking on their needs. They're the one who feel the pain of what they are going through. So if we want to move forward, we need to train young people. We need to give them space. We need to mentor them and work with them as partners, not as beneficiaries, to make sure that they are the one amplifying the thing that they need to, the change that they need to see in the communities. Thank you. That's all from Tanzania.
Thank you so much, Matilda. Yes, it's really great that you were also able to share the situation in Tanzania. And it's also, Mageda also says that it is the same situation in Kenya. So it's really, really also good that we have participants from the African region. And I also agree with Adsa when she said in the chat that we really need cross-regional solidarity on both the issues of GBV as well as abortion rights, because yes, it's really happening, no, around the world. And we really need to have more solidarity when it comes to this kind
Yes.
of issue. I also agree with Donato. Let me
Yes.
just say it here. Like, let's care for justice and women human right, especially abortion right issue. Thank you for that, Donatus. And then maybe I can just like reiterate also what Shifra says, that I like what Attorney Claire said about the criminalization, also as a way to destigmatize, because what we're really saying is that women should not be punished for getting abortion, whatever the reasons are. So there I think we actually have a lot of insights to, like, we still have a lot of insights to share. If you also want to have this be shared to us, of course you can always email us any of your feedback or any of your clarifications or questions regarding our topic for today. But again, we are so happy and we're so grateful for everyone who has attended the third session of our regional webinar, a regional online discussion series. We are actually now, we're 47 in this Zoom discussion. Yay, thank you so much. Um, Once again, of course, let's not forget to thank again our speakers for today, Nandini and Ayesha of ASAP, Adsa of Sama, and of course, Attorney Claire of Pinsan, and she's also uh, the Executive Director of Engender Rights. Just to finally wrap this up, we would want everyone again to show their faces, turn on their camera. We will just have a very quick photo documentation. There, okay, so it's finally nice to see the faces.
Yeah, I know. I also just saw some those beautiful faces again. I think that day
Yes.
all the videos were on. Yeah, so great.
All right, so we're 2 pages in the Zoom. Again, just like last week, what I was saying, just keep your smiles pasted actually, because I don't know who will be included in the first page and the second page of the Zoom discussion today. So okay, so let me just count. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, now I'll go to the second page. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. There you go. Okay. Once again, thank you so much, young
Thanks, Arina. Yeah.
participants from Philippines, Indonesia, and then of course from Africa, and to our speakers for today. Um, Next week, our next session will be on Wednesday, December 10th, and that will be our last session. We will be talking about how do we advance for the sexual and reproductive justice, of course, in the context uh, also in relation to our previous topics. So thank you again, and see you all again next week. Bye.
Bye bye. Thanks, everyone.